Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another Tumbler tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a monochrome Milky Way tumbler design. This is a long one and we go pretty in detail. So hopefully this is helpful for you in creating these types of designs. I had so much fun making this and I really hope you all enjoy the video. As always, I'll have a full supply list down in the description box for you, along with links to join my mentorship group, follow me on Instagram, and all of that fun stuff. So be sure to check that out and let me know what you think down below in the comments. I hope you enjoy. Let's go! For this design, we're going to use this really big 40-ounce dupe tumbler. This is from Ava Jane's Blanks, and it's already the color that we want it to be. The only thing I want to do is add a little bit of lighter swirl in here, but we'll use this regular turquoise base as the base for most of the design. So I'm going to take the lid off, set it aside, because obviously we don't need it. For the inserts for my big tumblers like this, I use one of the larger inserts that I have, and then I also wrap it in bubble wrap so that it's a really nice, tight fit, and that the cup doesn't move around on there. And you really have to, like, work this in there. But once it's in there, it'll stay, and it'll be great. Our cup is not going anywhere and we're ready for designing. So what I'm going to do is just go outside and paint a nice little swirl. I'm also going to cover this up because I don't want that stainless steel line there. I just want it to be full color. I'm going to paint the handle too. If you don't want to paint your handle and you just want to leave it this color, you can tape it off and not paint it, but I'm going to paint and glitter it just the same way. All right, so after painting, this is what the cup looks like. So I just added a light swirl here and then some darker teal accents too, so that we can add those in to our swirl as well. So I'm gonna let this dry and then we'll go in and add our glitter. All right, so we've got our cup spray painted here. Everything is totally dry. Now we're gonna go in with our epoxy method and we are going to apply all of the glitters to our tumbler. Okay, so I've got all of my glitters here. I will list all of them down below in the description box for you, so you can use the same ones if you want to. Of course, we're using a lot. That's just the way I do things. Now, when you're working with epoxy, you definitely want to wear a respirator. Because I'm going to be talking to you throughout this video, I'm not going to wear one, but please make sure that you are wearing an organic vapor respirator when you're working with epoxy. I will link my respirator that I got on Amazon that I really like to use. It's very affordable and it's a super easy option. So I will link that down below for you as well. I'm going to be using my Flynn Sisters Artist Cure epoxy for this method. You can use a fast set or a regular setting epoxy. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to use regular setting epoxy for the sake of doing it. Now I am going to use some epoxy for a different project. So I'm going to mix up 30 milliliters just so I only have to mix up once. But for epoxy method on a cup this big, you probably only need to mix up maybe between 5 and 10 milliliters. You don't need a ton for epoxy method. I'm gonna start with my part B and I'm gonna pour 15 milliliters of that into my cup. I like to start with part B because it's thinner. And so when you pour part A in, it kind of starts the mixing process already. But I do know some people who like to do it the other way, so it's totally up to you. Doesn't really matter. I'm gonna mix this amount of epoxy for probably 3 to 4 minutes. I'll set a little timer. Okay, so my epoxy is mixed here, and I'm going to add my thin layer of it to the tumbler. And I'm probably going to use about 10, I would say, 10 milliliters. Just because I'm using a lot of glitter and I want this process to be really easy. So the more epoxy you use, it makes it a little easier, for me at least, but use whatever you like. If you like to use a super thin amount of epoxy when you do epoxy method, go for it. If you are more comfortable using a little more, do that. It's okay. You just don't want to put so much epoxy on your tumbler that everything starts to drip and run. You definitely don't want that. So you do want to keep your layer on the thinner side, but anywhere between, I would say, like 3 to 10 milliliters of epoxy for this size cup is totally fine. Now again, I'm choosing to just include my handle in the whole design glittering process. But if you don't want to do that, you can either remove the handle and then put it back on later, or you can just tape it off and avoid it as you glitter and epoxy. But I like to make the handles just part of the design, so that's what I'm gonna do. So here's what our cup looks like with the epoxy on it. Very thin, even layer. I ended up using 5 milliliters of epoxy, so super thin. You don't need a lot. 5 is plenty. All right, so starting with our chunkiest, darkest color, we're gonna use Chanysta from Olive's Glitter Outlet. And I'm gonna put that on our dark sections here. We're gonna go really light to start, as always with any sort of glitter blending, and then we're gonna build up the coverage as we go. So I'm pretty close to the cup here, as you can see. I've got the holes open on my shaker, just so we get really, really light coverage. Because remember, you can always add more. You can always build it up. You don't need to go super crazy heavy-handed in the beginning. So super duper light, as you can see. And now we'll move into our next color, which is Head Over Teals. And we're gonna put that next to everywhere we put Chanysta, and then we'll fill in the blanks with the lighter colors. So Head Over Teals is gonna be a little heavier because we want some more of this coverage here. It's a bigger section. So it's kind of going around the tumbler, if that makes sense. We've got 2 little strips of it going around. So 1 strip here, and then 1 strip starting from the top of the handle, going all the way around to the bottom. But you can see we're still going super duper light. So we don't want to fill up all of this cup space when we have a lot of glitter to add. So that's where we're at right now. Next, we're going to take Kenny, which is kind of an iridescent blue, shifty, hinty color. And I'm going to put that pretty much everywhere that doesn't have glitter on it now, because this is going to pick up any color that we put down around it. Just going to give us a really nice, pretty iridescent base to work around. So I'm putting this all over these blank spots, but still going very light in the coverage, because we want it to pick up all the colors that are around it. So we don't want to go too crazy heavy. You can even put some of this in the areas you already have glitter to start to build the blend. This is going to be a really, really helpful transition color as we go along and work through this design. So you just kind of shake it. It is kind of hard to get these big pieces of glitter through the little holes. So I'm going to switch to the open section of my shaker. And just be really careful. I'm going to hold my shaker higher up so that the glitter falls and disperses rather than like super concentrates on the cup, if that makes sense. Because I still want really light coverage. I just want to make sure it's easy to get the glitter out of the bottle. Do a little bit on the bottom too if you want. All right, so there's what it looks like with all of our big chunky players on the cup. We've got one more chunky, and it's kind of a mini chunky. It's my favorite color. It's Kaneohe, And I'm gonna put that basically right over Kenny in the super light sections, just to build up the coverage and reinforce the color a little bit. And I'm gonna go a little bit more heavy-handed because now we're getting into the smaller cuts and we really wanna start to build the coverage and the blend. And Kaneohe is another really good color for blending because it's so light and it's got those same kind of iridescent pieces in it. It's gonna make blending really, really easy. Anything that has that iridescent shift to it is gonna be a really good color to blend because no matter where it goes, it's gonna pick up that color that's next to it, if that makes any sense at all. When you're using purely metallic colors, they are colored. So they're gonna like show on an iridescent base. But if you use iridescent colors, they blend really well together because they have that same kind of undertone. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but hopefully it does. If you've done a blend of iridescent colors or color shifty colors, you'll know what I mean. And if you haven't, you should, because it's very easy to get a good blend. Especially if you're new to ombres, it's a good way to practice and make sure it still looks good in the end. Okay, so now that we've got our base of chunkies down, we can start to move into our fine cuts and then our extra fine cuts to really just secure that blend. So for my fine cut, I'm gonna use, I grabbed both Turks and Andrews, and I think I'm gonna use them both. I'm gonna start with Andrews, and I'm gonna put that in all of the places that we put Chanysta, so the darkest color. And I'm gonna go really light again in my coverage, just trying to build a nice fade in the color. So I'm going in these quick little bursts of shakes, as you can see. My shaker is about maybe 8 to 10 inches from my cup. And as I shake, I really want that glitter to just disperse rather than like plop on the cup, if that makes sense. So like if you were to just pour really close, you're gonna get a heavy concentration of glitter falling. But if you shake from the top, from higher up, with really light shakes, that glitter is gonna trickle and just like fall rather than on the cup. So that's what I'm going for. I want a nice fall, not a blop of color down. And I always like to keep my cup moving when I'm doing a blend. I just find that it's easier to help that glitter fall nicely. Okay, so there's what it looks like with Andrews on it. And then we'll move into the other colors and we'll come back and do Turks later. Because I don't want to build up too much dark right now. I want to make sure that the lighter colors have their moment too. So we'll add Turks at the very end. The next color is Cece, and that's going to go where we put head over Teals. So right next to our darkest teal color, just kind of starting to create that swirly blend. And you can also put this over the darker color as well. That's just gonna help the blend, help them get all acquainted. And my rule kind of is the lighter the color, like if we're at the lighter, as we move into the lighter colors in the process, you can go a little bit more heavy-handed because you've got the dark base down. Lighter colors are always gonna blend better with each other. So you can go a little bit more heavy as you get to your lighter colors. The next light color we're gonna use is Coal, and that's gonna go everywhere that we put Kaneohe and Kenny. So really basically all over the entire tumbler at this point. We're just gonna use this to really help us get a good blend, cover up all of those little holes in the lighter areas, and then we can go in and finish the blend with our extra fine cuts after we do Turks. Coal is another color that has that kind of iridescent shift to it. So what I mean is if you were to put it on a different color base, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this very well, but when this goes on the dark background of my paper, it kind of pulls a little yellow. So it doesn't just have the one solid metallic glitter color in there. It's got a little bit of a shift, and that's what you're looking for to really help you get a good blend of colors. Because again, it's just gonna pick up whatever you've got down already and make everything look really, really nice and seamlessly blended. We've got 3 glitters left to add, so we're gonna do Turks first, again in all of the dark sections, just to reinforce those, deepen that dimension, Get everything really nice and blended and swirly. Still going super light because I don't want it to be too heavy and dark. I do just want a little bit of that dark moment there somewhere. So the extra fine we're going to use for our head over teals and CC section is Little Mermaid. And that's going to go next to the darker colors. Again, and you can kind of just go wherever you want. At this point, we've got enough coverage. All we're doing now is just really building the blend. The goal here with any blend, for me at least, is to make it really hard for you as the viewer or like as somebody looking at the tumbler. I want it to be really hard for you to tell where one color ends and another begins. I just want you to get there and all of a sudden be like, wow, it went from dark to light and I don't know where that line was. If that makes any sense at all. That's always my goal with an ombre. Okay, final color here is 45 Bistro. And that's gonna go pretty much everywhere. Mainly in these lighter sections, but because this is our last color, you can kind of just go wherever you want. It's just gonna help build the blend. It's not gonna hurt anything. Okay, here we are. That looks pretty good, I think. Okay. Now with a gloved hand, I'm going to just go through and tap down any glitters that might be sticking up and really pointy. Like up here, we've got a chunky guy just standing straight up. We don't want that. We want those glitters to be laying as flat as possible because that's gonna make epoxying later really, really easy. So just super light taps here. You don't need to like push in. You just want to get them to kind of lay down. And using a little more epoxy for things like this is what makes this really easy because the epoxy is going to hold those glitters down and flat rather than just keeping them adhered to the tumbler and sticking straight up. I keep doing this like you guys know what I mean. I'm the glitter. So now I'm gonna set this on my drying rack for probably 6 to 8 hours, just because I want it to be totally dry.
So here's a close-up of what the swirl looks like along with the glitters I used. I am obsessed with how it turned out. I'm so happy. So I actually ended up letting the tumbler sit and dry overnight, and now I'm gonna go in and seal it. I decided to use the CRYSTALAC glitter glue and water mixture that I always use to seal. If you want to though, you can just spray seal it, like using the Rust-Oleum clear glass spray or whatever you like to use to seal your glitter. Doesn't matter. What we want to do though is seal our glitter so that when we go in and add our epoxy, none of that glitter that we flattened out moves once we put the epoxy on top of it. So one step was pressing it flat into the like wet epoxy when we glittered, and now the second part of making sure that the glitter lies flat is sealing it. So highly recommend sealing your glitter because it will make your life so much easier, I promise. All right, so now we're ready to add our Milky Way elements. So at this point, my tumbler has 2 coats of epoxy on it. So for the first coat, after my sealer dried for 2 hours, I added the first coat of epoxy, which was probably about 45 milliliters of the Flynn Sisters Fast Cure epoxy. And then I waited about probably 8 hours to add my second coat. You don't need to wait that long. That was just kind of how it played out for my day. But that second coat was about 40 milliliters as well. So our cup at this point is pretty much totally smooth, but because we're going to go right in with another coat of epoxy and add our Milky Way elements, we don't really need to do any sanding at this point. You can sand later if you need to. So for my makeup powders, I'm going to use 3 tones of teal, the same thing basically that we did with our glitter. So I'm using Simply Sarah Micas, I'm using May, Elena, and Queen's Lace. So we've got a darker teal, a super light teal, and then a white. And I'm gonna put a tiny little popsicle stick tip of each of those into their own little medicine cup. And then I'm gonna add maybe about 3 to 5 milliliters of epoxy into each of those. And then I'm gonna take some of the leftover mixture of the glitter that I used on my tumbler. So I think in there we've got Head Over Teals, a little bit of Kenny, basically all of the chunkies mixed together that I didn't clean up in between doing them on my tumbler. For that part, you can do any sort of chunky glitter that matches. I just decided to use the leftover that fell off my cup, but if you don't have that, or if you like clean up after yourself when you glitter, unlike me, you can use any sort of iridescent chunky. That'll work just fine. So before I go in with my mica powder mixtures, I'm going to put a coat of just plain old regular epoxy on my tumbler. This is going to help the micas move and swirl around and give us that really pretty Milky Way look. I forgot to mention that for this Milky Way coat, I am using the Artist Cure epoxy again because fast set will just set up too quickly. For Milky Ways and things like this, you always want as much working time as humanly possible. So I would recommend using a regular setting epoxy so you don't have to rush and work super fast. You can just really take your time with a regular setting epoxy. So for that coat, I used probably 25 milliliters, so about half of what we used for the first two coats. And I'm gonna put that on, let it spin on my cup, maybe for like 3 to 4 minutes, just so it can level out, do its thing, and then we'll be ready to apply our micas. So of course, like with glitter, we're going to start with our darkest color first. So I'm taking May, and you can see I'm just applying it with my popsicle stick in the same areas where we put the darker teal glitter. Now, of course, you have the freedom to do as much of this or as little as you would like. So if you really want a super mica-y swirl on your Milky Way tumbler, you can add more. If you just want a slight little hint of something extra, just to add a little bit of dimension, you can go really, really soft with this and just add a tiny little bit. I'm going to go somewhere in the middle. I definitely want my glitter and all of that hard work I did to show through, but I also really want to make this a true Milky Way tumbler with a lot of swirly time. So I'm going to add my May, and then I'm going to go in with Elena, and I'm going to go on those medium teal areas. And now as you can see, I'm literally just putting it on with the popsicle stick, and then I'll zhuzh it up a little bit later with my gloved hand. That's just the way I prefer to do things like this. I feel like I have a lot more control when I just use my hand rather than trying to use any sort of tool or anything. But of course, if you try this out and you feel more comfortable using a tool, go for it. There's no rule. Just do whatever you're comfortable with and do it however you think looks the best. So after Elena, I went in with Queen's Lace, put that in the super light sections. And now as you can see, I'm going with my hand and I'm just softening all those lines up and making everything look really nice and blended and just super soft. I think that's the best way I can describe what I'm trying to do here. I just want to soften those lines up, make everything look really blended, and just give this a little bit of a nice Milky Way. Now, of course, you don't want to make this look like super perfect when you do it, because as your cup spins, the mica is going to move naturally around your tumbler, which is what you want. You want all of your swirls to look natural. So you don't want to work this so much and then have it look exactly how you want it and super precise. And then when you come back and look at it when it's done spinning, it's going to look different anyway. So just play with it a little bit and then step away, let it spin, let the turner do its job, and then it will look beautiful in the end. I decided to add a little bit more May to mine just to bring a little bit more of that deep teal mica to the forefront of my design. Then after that, I was ready to add my glitter. So for that extra glitter, I did add some epoxy to that medicine cup as well. And we're going to apply it essentially the same way we did the micas. I'm going to just put a little bit of it on my gloved hand. So I'm not using a popsicle stick, I'm using my hand. But I'm just going to put it in some areas where I just want some more glitter to show. I feel like doing this really makes the design look way more intricate because you've got glitter underneath, then you've got your swirl, and then you've got more glitter on top, which just makes everything look really dimensional and elegant and just like, oh, I love adding glitter to the top of anything. You guys know me. If you watch my channel at all, I add glitter all the time, anytime, anywhere. always I'll add more glitter. So I'm just gonna add some more of this to add a little bit more dimension, let it spin, and then I'm gonna go in with another 2 coats of epoxy on top of this. In between those 2 coats, I am going to do a full round of sanding. I'm not going to show this in this video because this is a long video already. I will be going over sanding in a future tutorial if you are interested in learning about my sanding process. But after that, I will be done. So we'll do a coat of epoxy, we'll sand everything down, make sure we've got everything smooth, the rim is clean and good, and then we'll add our final coat of epoxy. So that's it. Here's the final design. You guys, I had so much fun at making this tumbler. I can't wait to do this in more color combinations. It's just, it's like therapeutic making these kind of designs. I hope you all really enjoyed this tutorial. Of course, if you did, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button down below. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any of my new videos. And if there's anything you'd like to see me cover on the channel in a more in-depth style, kind of how we did in this video, be sure to let me know that down in the comments as well. I am here to teach you the best I can, so if there's a technique or something that you would love to learn, be sure to drop it in the comments down below. All right, thanks so much for watching as always, and I will see you in the next one. Love you. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Made by Manny and Mal. You can join my mentorship group at the website on your screen. I'd love to have you in the Elite fam. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you are not already so you don't miss any of my new videos. And while you're here, here's another video for you to check out. I want to say a huge thank you to my channel members and my Elite fam members. You guys make this channel possible. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.